The end of the school year is coming up, and some of you seniors have already started wrapping up your high school careers. On this episode, we're going to talk about this transition from high school to post-high school life. I have several student questions on this topic. We're going to talk about time management, housing, college, and of course, work. The letter T in STEP stands for transition, and that's what we're talking about on this episode. It's the week of May 11th through the 15th, and this is the QC STEP podcast. Hi, and thanks for downloading this week's episode of the QC STEP podcast. I'm Corey Finneran. As we're wrapping up the school year, I'm asking all of you to send in questions that you might have about employment. My plan is that I will record a handful of episodes of the podcast and then release them periodically over the summer. So now's the time to send in your questions. Maybe after this episode is done, your class can come up with a handful of questions. Send them to me and I will add them to the list. So this week we're going to talk about the transition from high school life to after high school life. This conversation is kind of geared towards you seniors, but for juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, this is good information to have, and it's a good idea to start thinking about your post-high school plans, and it's never too early to start preparing for major life changes. I have several questions on this topic from students at Mercer County High School. There are 7 questions on college or employment after high school that I'm going to answer on this episode. So let's jump right in. The first question is, what tips can you give about adjusting to college life? Well, I'll say this, and anyone that has gone to college will tell you this. The transition from high school to college is a big change, and it requires quite a bit of adjustment. So how are things different? The amount of homework you will have in college will probably be shocking to you. If you're taking an English class, you might need to read 4 or 5 chapters of a book in 2 days. You might have to write a paper, a 3 or 4 page paper every week. If you graduated high school kind of doing the minimum amount of work possible, you're in for a big shock in college. You cannot coast through college, even if it's community college. You can't coast through it. If you have an IEP and you receive accommodations to be successful in high school, those accommodations may not be available in college. Next week, I'm going to put out a video with Susan Sacco. Susan is the Disability Services Coordinator at Blackhawk College. And Susan will talk about some of the differences that you will experience in college compared to high school. In high school, your teachers know you have an IEP, and they know what accommodations you need to be successful. And while there aren't as many accommodations available in college, there are some available. But the main difference is that you will need to advocate for yourself. And what I mean by that is the responsibility of being successful in school is now up to you. You need to tell the instructors what accommodations you need, and if you're struggling, you need to be the one to figure out where to get that extra help. In college, instructors do not get on you about your grades. It's up to you, and that's why it's important to meet with the Disability Services Department before you even enroll in classes. So be on the lookout for this video with Susan Sacco. There are some other adjustments that you'll need to make when transitioning from high school to college. For instance, time management. The next question is, when starting a new job during college, what's the best advice you can give for keeping up with everything that could be going on with your busy schedule? To go along with that question, another student asks, between working a full-time job and going to college for night classes, how will I have time to stop and relax during the week? So let's look at the first question I read. How do you keep up with everything that could be going on with your busy schedule? First and foremost, I think it's important to be organized with your schedule. Whether that's keeping a planner with your school and your work schedule and all of the due dates for your assignments, or if it's keeping that schedule on the calendar on your phone or your tablet, computer, being organized is the most important thing. I think if you're not organized with your schedules, it will be almost impossible to keep up with everything. My second piece of advice is to not procrastinate. If you're not familiar with that term, procrastinate, it basically means that you wait until the last minute to get your tasks done. Procrastinating with homework means having a project to do and waiting until the night before it's due to get it done. If you procrastinate with your work, your schedule, your schoolwork, your schedule is going to be very busy and very stressful. You've heard me say a few times on this episode already that college is definitely an adjustment, and procrastinating will make that adjustment more difficult. Now, the other question was, between working a full-time job and going to college for night classes, how will I have time to stop and relax during the week? In all honesty, you won't have a lot of time for relaxation. Working full-time and going to school full-time is very difficult. I did that when I was in college, and I'll be honest, I probably could have done a lot better in school if I had worked less. It's not easy to juggle those responsibilities, and when it comes to free time, especially during the week, to be honest, you won't have the amount of free time that you have now. But that's a sacrifice that you're choosing to make to further your education. That's part of growing up, part of becoming an adult, and that's having responsibilities. So I realize that it's probably not the answer you want, but you will be really busy and it will probably be stressful. But if you stay focused, you don't procrastinate, and you keep organized, you'll get through it, and I think that you'll be glad that you did. The next question is, can I find a job during college that relates to what I am studying? Well, I guess that kind of depends on what you're studying, but I would say for the most part, yes. You can probably find a part-time job in that industry. Not only can you do it, but you probably should do it. One reason that you should do it is that it would give you an in with a business after you have your degree or your certification so that you can get the job that you want once you're qualified for it. Another thing to consider is that it might be worth picking up a volunteer job in that industry. Because it's volunteer, it's not going to lead to money, but it would be good for getting your foot in the door with a business, and it would be good networking and experience. The next question is, are there job opportunities at college campuses? Yes, there are. Are they in the area that you're studying? Probably not. But most community colleges and universities have several work opportunities for students. There's the school bookstore, there's food service, the library. There might be opportunities in custodial or the janitorial area. There may be opportunities within the departments. If the college has dorms, there's a lot of opportunities to work there. If a school has athletic events, there's probably opportunities to work the ticket gates or the concession stands, or maybe set up or clean up after events. There are actually quite a few working opportunities in college. There's typically a department in the school to help students with work opportunities. So speak with your advisor or the disability services coordinator to find out what opportunities you might be able to take advantage of. The next question isn't about work or school, but it's about transitioning from high school to after high school life. That question is, what advice can you give about looking for a place to live? Well, it's hard to give blanket advice on this because every situation is different. And I'll say this, my personal advice is that you should not jump into living on your own prematurely. The most important thing to consider is your budget. Living on your own too quickly is a really quick way to get into a lot of debt. So if you can, avoid it. My suggestion would not be to move out until you have to. If you do have to, again, it's hard to give advice because every situation is different, but I would suggest getting a roommate if you can, and that will help you split your costs. If you do want a roommate, you're probably going to want someone that's reliable and trustworthy. A bad roommate can be a very ugly situation. And I haven't really answered the question here. The question was what to look for when trying to find a place to live. You'll want to find a place that's close to work or school. You'll want to find a place that looks like it has good living conditions and that's in a neighborhood that you would like to live in. If the landlord doesn't seem trustworthy when they're showing you the place, you might want to decide against that particular place. Go with your gut. Don't rush into any decisions because they can have a huge impact on your life. The last question is, what things should you consider about your lifestyle when you begin a full-time job? Well, the most important thing is that you do not want your lifestyle to hurt your job. If hanging out with friends or enjoying some freedom causes you to stay out late and then not get very much sleep, you can't let that interfere with your job. After you graduate and enter the workforce or go to college, you will realize that you have a lot more responsibility. You are in charge of your own success. If you're late to work or your work suffers because of your social life, you might not have a supervisor to give you a warning or suggest that you get your responsibilities in order. They might just fire you. So don't let your social life or your lifestyle interfere with your job. And don't assume that someone will be there to direct you back on the right path. You could be out of a job and without income faster than you think. So thanks to all of the Mercer County High School students that sent in those questions. They weren't all employment topics, but they are related to work. And that's something that you're probably going to realize after you graduate. Pretty much everything you do in life once you're out of high school relates to work. This is why you're step teachers. In our program, we've spent so much time trying to prepare you for life after high school. Our goal is to equip you as best as you'll let us so that you will be ready to face life after high school. The practice applications, the mock interviews, the employment portfolios, the day of transition, your training sites, the individual work sites, all of these things are part of the STEP program to help you get ready for life after high school. So if you're a senior, use these things that we've taught you to be as successful as you can be. If you're a junior or a sophomore, hopefully you've seen throughout this episode how serious life is after high school. Don't wait until the end of your senior year to take this stuff seriously. Next year in your STEP or your co-op class, try hard. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. So take advantage of the help that you will have. So thanks for watching or listening to this week's episode, and I will be back next week with the last regular episode of the school year of the QC STEP podcast.